Hey everybody, welcome back. And in this section, we are going to talk about Azure NAT Gateway. So Azure NAT Gateway is fully managed and high resilient network address translation service. Virtual Network NAT simplifies outbound internet connectivity for virtual networks. When configured on a subnet, all outbound connectivity uses the virtual network NAT's static public IP addresses. Let's first try to understand what is network as address translation NAT. NAT is used to enable multiple hosts on private network to connect to internet using a single public IP address, or we can say the basic idea of NAT is to allow multiple devices access to internet through a public address. You can divide NAT into three different categories. One is going to be the static NAT, and static NAT you are going to have one-on-one connection. Second type is going to be the dynamic. A private IP address is translated into public IP address from a pool of IP address. So in this case, you are going to have a pool of public IP address defined. The third one is going to be PAT, which is port address translation. Many private IP addresses can be translated to single registered IP address. So this is again going to be one public IP address allocated for all the connections. And the question comes, why do we need a NAT gateway? This is ultimately a device which is going to give you the outbound connection. In my previous video, we have seen even if you remove the public IP address from the interface level, you still have access to internet from a default route which is configured towards the internet. And that is something a kind of shared services you can consider where the IP is not going to be managed by you. There can be some scenarios. Maybe you wanted to access a Salesforce like portal where you need to do the IP whitelisting. At that time, you should have control on the IP address which is going to make the connections. That time, you need to use a NAT gateway, which is going to be the managed services, and you are going to have a full control on that, especially assigning the pool, assigning the public IP addresses. Let's try to understand the NAT gateway deployment. So NAT gateway is a zonal resource. It means it is going to be the part of one AG. And in this example, this NAT gateway belongs to AG1. The NAT gateway resource can use up to 16 public IP addresses with a small limitation that the NAT gateway services cannot be assigned to multiple virtual network. Now we have a subnet where the resources are spread across multiple AGs. My first virtual machine belongs to AG1, the second one is AG2, and the third one is AG3. Now, whenever the first machine wants to try to access the internet services, it can utilize the NAT gateway services. Similarly, a machine in AG2 can also connect to NAT, and the third machine can also utilize the NAT gateway services. However, in case of the failure in AG1, you are going to lose, all the machines are going to lose the internet connectivity. Let's discuss now how we can avoid failures by using the high availability services. As we have mentioned earlier that the NAT gateway service is going to be the zonal so that it can only be part of one AG. However, you have options to deploy multiple instances of NAT gateway in different AGs, and these resources or subnets will be mapped to those particular instance of NAT gateway. For example, this is a subnet. It can use NAT gateway 1, and this subnet it can use NAT gateway 2. Similarly, the third subnet, it can also use the third NAT gateway. So in case of failure, other resources, they can still survive. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next section.